Well, welcome back to another segment in excerpts from A Spiritual Ascension. Um, so sometimes I say, am I ever going to run out of information to kind of do videos? And it's like Spirit's always sending me some kind of situation or whatever to kind of talk about. Um, so there's this situation right now that I'm kind of going through, and it's difficult, not difficult in a way of my journey but just like everyday life. And remember, I talked about if you've been watching my videos, I did one on people being obsessed with your light. So it's kind of that situation. And one of the main reasons why you go through your journey, as I've talked about before, is so that you can build up kind of this rapport with the, I had to laugh there, this rapport with the divine spirit, God, however you refer to your higher source. And the universe wants you to learn how to not only get information using your intuition, but also learn to trust the universe, which is going to be a big thing later on. Because when it's time for you, after your journey is done, when it's time for you now to do your spiritual work, the reason why you're here, there's going to need to be a lot of trust in that. So you're building trust along your journey. Um, and I know in my previous life, as I always say, you're having two lives within one lifetime. In my previous life, whenever something went wrong or I had an issue, I had a problem, I didn't know what to do. I talked about my former best friend. I would always run to or call up and I'm like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? What should I do? And now I kind of look back and like she kind of was giving me bad advice. Like it was her viewpoint of what she probably would do, or kind of more a controlling aspect of saying, well, this is kind of what I want you to do. And even though it didn't come out like this is what I think is best for you. And then there's other times when I've gone to other people and just say, oh, well, what do you think about this? And then my information would end up getting passed along to other people that didn't need to know my business. Um, So the universe is teaching you along your journey to have put full trust in spirit, and also to use your intuition to receive the answers. I remember this is before my awakening. I'm gonna say 2010, 2011, maybe. Um, I was really up in my head about knowing that I couldn't, that I, how do I say this? That if you've been following me, you know the story about my sisters and the shunning and everything like that. And having to fully break away from them, and how was that going to be? And feeling guilty about leaving what I knew. Also, if I haven't said this already, I was seeking out a therapist, thinking that would be my best route as far as for healing. Also, I had never really processed my son's passing. If you just coming into this, my 19-year-old son, who was a sophomore in college in 2007, was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. And I didn't know how to process his passing. Also, I didn't realize, well, I'm not going to go on to that. If you've been following along, you'll probably have come across um, what I tell you about him. But when he first passed, I had thought about like going to a grief counseling group. People get together and kind of express, what had, how they feel, about their grieving process. And I actually later on had developed a grief group that I had online, which I would like to start again. But understanding that so many people were trying to process something that I always say that it's a club that no one wants to belong to. So anyway, I was trying to seek out a therapist who kind of had a background in theology. I think I'm saying that right. And um, also who I could relate to. Because years before that, like just going through so many different things and, thinking that I was depressed and um, trying to get advice here and get advice here. But now, as I've moved through this process, especially over the past year of, as I'm telling my story in the other playlist, I haven't got to that point yet, but I'm telling the story of everything I went through for the 5 years of my ascension, and that you spend a lot of time alone because you're developing that rapport, that close bond with spirit, with the divine. And that's how your intuition really um, gets to its highest point. So, like as I was saying, I'm in this situation now where I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But I've been through this before. So it's like sometimes I have to remind myself, like I'm still human. So remind myself that um, you already have all the resources that you need within you to receive all the answers. Just ask, spirit, your ancestors, um, what should I do? And then sit with that. Do some meditation, allow it to come to you. I know now, whenever I do ask a question and I'll say spirit, like I always feel like spirit in a way is kind of like my best friend because I constantly talk to spirit, the universe, divine, constantly throughout the day. And even silly stuff, some of that has to do with knowing that my son is in spirit too, and my father and my grandparents, and including them in my conversation because I know that they're helping me on this path. But usually, if I have a question, my question comes to me, some kind of answer comes to me within very quickly or like within like 24 hours or so. And in some form, some way, something. It could just be a feeling, a knowing, a symbol that the universe and I have like agreed on that represents something in particular. Um, but I don't, but just understanding that when you get to a certain point, using your intuition, you won't need to go to anyone else for advice. Okay. Not to say that if you are having, I'm going to put in a disclaimer here, if you are having some kind of mental issues, breakdown, anything like that, please seek out help. Please seek out help. Okay. But also understand that we as spiritual beings, we've chosen this path, right? If you're here, you're probably here for a purpose and understand what I'm talking about. And that this relationship that we have with the divine is very intimate, and it's like a saying, it's like being having a best friend that we can tell anything to. Then they already know things. That's the craziest things. There's so many things like um, that have happened to me And it's like they already knew that things were going, I can't describe it, things were going to happen beforehand. And it's like they prepared me in a way. So anyway, I'm gonna let that go from there. And thank you so much for my new subscribers and everyone that's been following me. I really appreciate you guys. And if you would like to spend any time with me, having a reading, talking about your own story, there's a link below to book time with me. I've also done several courses on the ascension process, and that link is also below. Okay, I'll see you next time.